Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 18 of Confessions of a Market Maker. I'm your co-host, Ray, aka All Day Ray, aka the Globex Guru. And I'm here with my mischief-making co-host, former market maker of 20 years, a man who sees the market more clear than the lagoon I bathe in, the, the degenerate whisperer, prevents the most accounts blow-ups in all of retail trading, a man whose soothing voice is highly sought after in the meditative audiobook industry. I'm talking about JJ. JJ, how's it going?
Good, Ray. How you doing today?
Doing great, man. And I'm excited for our guest today. A man who comes from humble beginnings, began his career in the mailroom of a brokerage firm. A man who is now chairman to Solartechwindow Renovacare, a commercial real estate titan, mentor to JJ, the one who coined the gorilla nickname, aka Moose. I'm talking about Harmel Rayat. Harmel, how's it going?
Good day. I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah, man, just really grateful you joined us. It's nice to get to know somebody on here who knows JJ from his time in Vancouver. He's told us so many stories of what's gone on. And, I don't know if it's true or not, and so it's good we got someone on here who can corroborate some of these stories of, the wild penny stock promotion days. What was it like back then?
Is that for me, that question?
That's for you. Yeah, that's for you.
Well, I wasn't involved in a wild penny stock promotion, so that's why I hesitated to respond. But, so I'm not sure where that came from.
No, he was actually, the thing with Harmel and I was we're not degenerates, but we were always degenerate adjacent because Vancouver, had a fair number of what we'd call rounders. So I think what he's talking about is what was the atmosphere like back then?
Oh, yeah. Now we're going back a long way. Long way. When did I first meet you? In the 90s?
1994.
1994. Gosh.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
You were in the CIBC building.
Yes.
And you were known as a high maintenance client at the company that I was working at called StockDeck, which was in direct mail advertising. The thing was that Moose or Harmel was actually helping fund the company when they needed cash. So of course he was demanding. And so they gave him to me. And for I think the first 6 months of dealing with him, he was just a voice on a phone. I had never actually met him, even though we were only 2 blocks away.
That's right. Boy, you're taking me back so long. I'm having a flood of memories from the good old days. I haven't even thought about that office, the one at the foot of Burrard Street, forever. That was a good time. Those were really good times. Let me tell you what the best times were. So when you sponsored for dinner, they were really enjoyable. I think I got part of our fees back during the dinners.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Well, yeah, Ray. I'll let you finish with the questions, so that we could get into some of the more funnier things.
Yeah, no, I just Harmel, because on this podcast, JJ's talking about these times, giving such funny, outrageous stories. I just wanted to get your take on what that time period in your guys' life was for you.
Well, you know what? For me, it was an exciting, exhilarating getting back to work time because just a couple of years prior, I had lost my mom and gotten married. Things were bleak. Some of my investments didn't work out, so it was a real challenging time.
Mm-hmm.
And when things go tough and things go south, you got to go north. You got to work. You got to roll up your sleeves, pull up your socks, and get to the office early. And I remember getting to that office early and watching the float planes come in. We had a clear view of the ocean, the mountains, and it was such a delight to go into that office. And we worked hard. We got behind some great ideas, some great companies, and tried our best at building value, building assets, and essentially creating some income for ourselves and getting back on our feet. So, and that was when I met the gorilla. And Joe, now that I think about it, our friendship it started off with business, of course, and then it matured over time. We spent a lot of time together, and it's endured all these decades. And I got to tell you, it's a tribute to you as an individual, because I don't have a lot of long-term friendships, and the friendships that I have are based on integrity, based on sincerity, based on the joy of speaking. And this is why I'm here. So I'm having a good time right now in my own mind, thinking about all those old days.
Yeah, no, great stuff. No, that rings very true. And then Jay, I'll hand the questioning over to you too. So get a little background on Harmel.
Sure. Well, just briefly, how I met Harmel was my boss. Sent me to work with him. And I always loved when they gave me the high maintenance clients, because those are the guys that you could learn the most from. They had attention to detail, and they knew something. So immediately, once I started talking to him on the phone, and my conversations with you, Moose, were, I think, like the 30 seconds. You were like, I need this, I need that. And, you had to hop. You didn't really have a lot of time for chit chat. Then I remember, meeting you in person. And I think the first time I met you in person was the time that, my boss told me to take you and your office out for lunch.
At Joe Forte's.
At Joe Forte's. And, I learned very quickly that lunch was going to be expensive. He showed up with this crew of people, and my boss had just left me with the company credit card, and he told Harmel, he said, eat as much as you want, drink as much as you want. And boy, did they ever.
We certainly took advantage of that, didn't we, Joe? I recall that being a very exciting afternoon.
Yeah, it was about $1,700 for lunch.
Back in the 1990s.
Yeah, I thought I was going to get fired. That was for sure. But Dwayne, the boss at the time, he was very good, and you were actually keeping us going. So it was a good experience. And then you kind of took me under your wing and taught me a lot about the business and how it works and that sort of thing. And so I'll just I want viewers or the listeners to sort of get a sense of how you started off and a little bit about your journey.
Oh, sure. My journey, gosh, I've been in business now for 4 decades, believe it or not. My journey started out when I graduated high school with mediocre marks. went to Vancouver Community College, Langara, and my interest was in small business. So I think I took the inaugural class. It was a small business focused class where you would learn everything about a small business: finance, marketing, accounting, everything about a small business. And as you know, I have a love of music, and part of the curriculum was putting together a business plan. I thought I'd put together a business plan for a nightclub.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and two of the individuals that were there, they read my business plan and they said, "Gosh, this is phenomenal! But where are you going to get the money for this amazing nightclub that you wrote a business plan on?" And I said, "Sir, I just thought, for the purpose, I would have the money. And they said, hey, you got to wake up and smell the coffee." And they sensed the energy that I had, and they suggested, hey, you know what, a guy like you should be either in car sales or the stock market. And I wasn't too keen on car sales, so I decided that the latter suggestion would be what I would pursue. And of course, I was 19, 20, really no education to speak of other than a small business development diploma. So I started knocking on doors, and the only job I could find at the time, and this was in 1980 or 81, the only job I could find was as a mailroom clerk, a messenger for a national brokerage firm at the time, Nesbitt Thompson Bungard. And I think I was on the 14th floor, and for about a year I schlepped around the streets of Vancouver walking up and down Granville Street, Burrard Street. I went to the old Vancouver Stock Exchange. I used to deliver trading tickets and pick up blotters and so on. And I would watch the guys, the board markers on the catwalks. Yep. And I as I was looking around the brokerage firm trading room and the office, and I thought, oh, gee, that looks like an interesting job, being a stockbroker. I'd like to pursue it. So I asked the then manager, I said, hey, could I get a job here? And he said, well, do you have a degree? No. Do you have any rich friends? No. How old are you? And I embarrassingly told him, and he said, sorry, this is not a place for you. So of course I was not going to let somebody else dictate my future.
Exactly.
He wasn't going to decide what lay ahead for me. It was myself. I was going to decide. Anyhow, long story short, I went back to the fellows that had read my business plan and said, what do I do? He said, well, why don't you start applying for jobs? Okay. So I did. I went to every firm I could think of, every firm, from the really blue chip firms to the bucket shops. I mean, every firm I knocked on. Remember Ann Marks? Remember that name, Ann Marks? Does that ring a bell?
Yes, yeah.
Now, with that, I was at the bottom of the barrel and went to the top of the barrel. Nobody would say yes to me. So I went back to the fellow, Don Siemens, who I admire and respect and adore. He's such a lovely. I've stayed in touch. He's been my friend and mentor for all these decades, still to this day. And still he laughs at me when we meet every so often. So he says, Harmel, you got to get together a resume, a nice looking resume, print it on the best paper stock you can find, and with that, go and see this fellow named Mr. Brown, Peter Brown.
Oh boy.
And I don't know how I got into that door. I can only surmise and assume it was my good friend Don Siemens picking up the phone and asking for a favor. And when I sat in Mr. Brown's palatial office, I looked at my resume. It hadn't been read. You know when you have two pieces of paper and it's stapled, when you turn from page 2, there's a crease at the left corner. There was no crease. And I hope I'm not boring you. And
No.
So he said, "Yeah, you're hired." It was about an hour conversation. I said, "Fantastic. Who do I work for?" Yeah. He said, "No, you work for yourself." I said, "What?" I said, "Well, do you have a training program?" He said, "Absolutely. Yeah, here's the yellow pages." No, I jest in part. No, they sent me to the trading floor, and I spent some time on the trading desk, and I had plenty of clerical experience because part of my messenger duties involved being in the back office. So I literally started off in the mailroom, started off on the ground floor, and that was in 1982 when the Dow was at around 800, when interest rates were 15%, and I was so excited I just went to work. Meanwhile, everybody else, I looked around, everybody else, they were lamenting about the times, the rates were so high, nobody's buying any investments. Oh, woe is me. It was brand new for me, and everybody I called was a brand new experience, and I went from there.
That's amazing. It's Peter Brown. Wow, that does bring back memories.
Yeah, he's a brilliant individual.
Yeah, he is, definitely. One thing I did notice about you, and it always stood out, because Vancouver was, we had the rounders, the guys who would do deals, and their time frame was usually 3 to 4 weeks, and then I noticed when I went to your office how different things were. It was almost, run, in a clinical manner. You didn't have salesmen on the phone selling stock. You had investor relations people. And back in the day when investor relations actually meant something, where you actually had a relationship with the investors that put money into your company, and you built a relationship with them over a long period of time. And I really, how did that come to you? Is that something that you always just had in mind when you started? Or did you notice that, all these guys are short-term guys? Maybe if I take the long view on this, that I can do things differently?
Oh, that's a great question. Really good question. There's no such thing as a quick buck, number one. And you can't build value overnight. You just can't. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're in it for the, in on Monday, out on Friday, great. But what are you gonna make? You're gonna make pennies. I'm only interested in making dollars, and big dollars at that. And the only way you can make big dollars is to have a genuine, honest, sincere intent that's grounded with integrity. You have to be a good person. Good things come to those who do good things. Joe, you know me. I've been a big believer in karma.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a good person, you somehow attract good people, and over time, good things happen. So we were not in it to win it in one day. We wanted to get behind and involved with great investment ideas and build them into successful enterprises. And guess what, Joe and Ray? When you're involved with the startups are tough. They're very, very tough. The odds are against you. And when things go against you, you need your friends to be supportive and understanding. And why not have your stockholders as friends? Why not tell them, hey, here's the opportunity, and here's the potential downside, and oh, by the way, here are all the risks that are involved. And people are willing to give you a chance if you're honest and upfront with them. So
Mm-hmm.
we built out our enterprise, our business, based on lasting friendships. We weren't in it to be out of the game really fast. And that's why I'm around. I'm here. It is 40 years later. You and I are having this pleasurable conversation, and I'm so thrilled again to be here.
Yeah, I really noticed that. That was the one thing that stood out about your operation. It was very different. You had sales training and investor relations training on Saturdays. When Vancouver was very much you're in the office at 7 o'clock, you're hungover, you go out after the close drinking, and most of these IR places had ex-brokers who usually had one or two or three bad habits, and I always noticed that you hired people who were not from the brokerage industry and they didn't have any bad habits, and that way you could sort of groom them, into a proper sort of a business-like frame of mind. And that stood out. It really, really stood out.
Yeah, that's exactly right. When people used to come to us, I didn't want anybody with bad habits. Didn't want anybody with baggage. Didn't need that. It was tough enough as it was.
Yeah,
So why add to your turmoil and your headaches?
exactly. Yeah, I noticed that was a big and discipline. You were one of the only sort of operations, in venture capital in Vancouver at the time, that had so much of an emphasis on discipline. And it really worked. It really, really paid off because the one thing I noticed is, as I was growing up in the industry, watching how you operated, I'd watch how, you do an offering or you do a financing and it would be oversubscribed. You'd be telling people, no, I've run out of stock to sell, and that was a different story than most of the people who were running around trying to close a financing.
Joe, you may. I don't remember if I ever hit you up for a fine meal over my success formula. I had lots of people ask me, "Hey, how have you done it? How have you done it?" And I got tired of going through an explanation because I was asked so many times. So I wrote down a little formula that I would give people, and it's my success formula. I have it in my book that just recently came out, and my success formula is basically an acronym, right? With the first S meaning something, the U meaning something, and the two S's in the middle meaning something,
Yes.
and one of the two S's means self-discipline, and it's essential to building life-changing habits. Without self-discipline, it's a difference of laying on the beach for a day versus owning that beach.
Exactly.
Listen, Michael Phelps, one of the greatest Olympians ever. The guy trained in 1 5-year period every single day, including twice on his birthday. Talk about self-discipline. You need
Exactly.
discipline. So,
Yeah, it was very, very obvious. And and I think that's also made that comes out in your deals, the way they're structured and the way they trade. If you're an investor in one of your deals, you actually give those people numerous chances to make money along the way. Because of the longevity of the company. And I find that's a big difference, and that keeps people, coming back for more. And I think that is also a part of taking the long-term discipline view. And it really, it's something that I learned from you very, very early on. And the other thing I learned from you is, you didn't have the benefit of, a university, a fancy university degree. Yet I could put you in a room with a microbiologist or an organic chemist, and you could hold your own, because you're so well read. And while most people were out drinking and things like that, you'd be at home reading and making notes. And I picked up that habit from you as well. So that, I have to thank you for that. It's really helped, sort of round out my education.
you have to. Learning doesn't stop when you graduate high school or college. You have to learn every single day. And by the way, just as you were saying that, what a treat that you offer your listeners with this podcast, and what a joy it must be for those listeners to be able to absorb all this wisdom that you're sharing with your. I don't know who else you've interviewed in the past or will do in the future, but boy, for someone starting out or for someone in the business just getting in the middle of their career, well, you can learn so much from others, and that's why you have to be a lifelong learner. It does not stop, in my opinion.
And it's one thing I really found, and when you started out, and you made the transition from the market to commercial real estate. Tell us a little bit about that.
Actually, you know what? I made that transition back in 2004. I in the 2000s, 2006, '07. Of course, everybody remembers late '07, '08. And I actually started making my transition into hard assets because my wife and my father and my family members would start saying, "Hey, do you think you'd want to add a bit of a more secure component to the family portfolio?" Which because the kinds of companies that I support, ideas that I support, are, again, they're karmically blessed because I want to do things that are meaningful to society. So just as a reminder, you might remember, and it was a very sad time for me. My mom passed away literally in my arms. My mom passed away in my arms, and not too long after that, I was clinically depressed.
Yeah.
And by the time I got back on my feet, an opportunity came by to develop a bioartificial liver device.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that with a lot of help, worked with the U.S. government, the USDA, with some amazing scientists that had developed a cell line that could replicate hepatic functionality. So I always believed in doing things like that could benefit. My mother died in my arms. I didn't want someone else to go through what I went through. But the challenge with things like that is it's cutting edge, it's high risk, and it can be very, very tough. And so I guess I was maturing myself. So I decided to listen and heed the advice of those people that loved me. And I decided to, and there's the early stage companies are just fraught with peril,
Yes.
trials and tribulations all the time. So in 2004, I started looking around at real estate. I had some experience. I started making some connections and contacts. And in 2005, I found an idea that I wanted to pursue. It was actually in North Vancouver. There's an elderly chap that had found the property, built the building, brought in tenants, and his wife had passed away, and he was in a different phase of his life. He wanted to sell the building. So when I met him, I told my agents, hey, you know what? You make this lovely man a fair offer. You make him an offer that he can't refuse, because I don't want to be known in real estate, or for that matter in any business, of being a nickel and dimer.
Mm-hmm.
You treat people with respect, you get respect back. And we offered him a price that he just absolutely couldn't refuse, and he accepted on the spot. And by the way, there was a closing dinner. That you know, and it was not me at the head of the table ordering all the fancy drinks. I invited him. So anyways, I digress. So I got into real estate in 2006, and in 2007, I bought some more assets. I owned 4 properties by that time in downtown Vancouver, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. I don't know how far your listeners are, but Vancouver is definitely a gorgeous, stunning place. And so over time, I have mostly done real estate. In fact, I was divesting from my various equity interests, my private company interests, my investments. I was just divesting and selling till about 2012, 14, when I basically had 2 companies in my portfolio and just real estate. And from about 2012, 13, around that time, 14, until about just recently, I've just primarily been real estate. And it's been a really exciting, interesting time for us. We've generated what some would regard as incredible returns over the last 15 years or so.
Oh, that's great. I still remember, going back to the public company, the first deal that you did, and you took it successfully from the over-the-counter bulletin board, the OTC bulletin board, to NASDAQ, to full NASDAQ. And I still remember being in the office with you, and we were watching CNBC. And when the ticker went across CNBC, that was something else.
Yeah,
that was,
that was in the mid-90s, I believe.
Yep, that was MCAR. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was a beautiful thing.
Indeed.
Yeah. Ray, should we we'll let you hop in here and ask a few questions?
Yeah, for sure. I was really enjoying that. Some of the things, Harmel, you were talking about, long-term view, building value, ethical discipline. A lot of people, I think, get a misconception of how people obtain success or wealth with being manipulative, shady, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think that was just really encouraging to hear from someone who has had the level of success like yourself. Because for some reason, and it's even like what me and JJ are involved in with, retail trading. You see a lot of new people think they're going to come in and be successful right away. And it's just such a false conception. And so I just really enjoyed hearing you say that. And so I just want to ask you, what was, do you remember your first impressions of JJ when you first met him?
Oh, yeah. At the dinner, at the luncheon, yeah. Is that before the cognacs came out or after? Now, JJ, I tell you what, the reason why JJ and I have remained friends over such a long period of time, and we vacationed together and spent good times and bad times together, is JJ has integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And like Earl Nightingale says, who's one of my greatest philosophers that I've listened to for decades, he says, if there's ever a secret of becoming successful, is to have integrity. And if I were to describe Joe in one word, that would be it: integrity. This man is you can give them $1 million and you're going to get $1 million back plus a 1.25% interest on top. Yeah, that's how I saw Joe from day one. A guy that was genuinely honest and sincere, and he would tell you the good, bad, and different. He would tell you the truth, even if it hurt. It didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
That's a key. And that's a rare quality, because people are more interested in expeditious outcomes versus waiting and doing it the right way.
Right. No, absolutely. I think that's what, especially all the people JJ mentors and teaches really appreciate, is that he tells it to you the way it is, not how, doesn't sell you anything, and just being real with people. And I know people appreciate it because I appreciate it. And so Harmel, you're the chairman to two publicly traded companies, SolarWindow and Renovacare. Tell us a little bit about those companies and what drew you to them.
Oh, well, SolarWindow was actually an idea that I came up with when I was visiting some scientists about a biotechnology idea they had. And out of the blue, as I'm waiting there for a meeting, I was looking out the window and I was thinking, gosh, wouldn't it be great if that passive window could, rather than being just something doing nothing, ordinary, be one that would be generating electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the beginning of the idea of the world's first transparent electricity generating window. And for the first half a decade that I was supporting it, it was a failure and total flop. In fact, I remember my CEO at the time. I'm just a stock, as you know, I've been just a shareholder for a long time in these companies. And he called me and he was saying, "Hey, Harmel, I got nothing exciting, nothing new, nothing groundbreaking to share with you." I said, "Great. So why the hell are you calling me?" And he says, "Oh, I need some money." I said, "What?" and people, and Joe, you know this because you've asked me many times. People ask me, you barely got through high school. You've got a minuscule amount of education compared to others, relatively speaking. How do you do what you do? And for the longest time, I couldn't answer that question. I didn't know how I was doing what I did. And then one day it dawned on me that I make my decisions oftentimes instinctually versus intellectually. And so when our CEO for SolarWindow, which by the way, as you know, is a public company, when he said, "Hey, I need money," I leaned back in my chair that afternoon and I said, "Okay, you know what? I'm going to send him." So I sent him $3 million that afternoon. And that was just the right amount of money that he needed to start basically breaking the shackles that had held him back. He was able to create technologies to make technologies, and before we knew it, we're setting records. Before we knew it, he's presenting our technology to the members of Congress. Before we knew it, we're collaborating with the U.S. government, the National Renewable Energy Lab. And today, if people were to go to our website, solarwindow.com, people will see something so amazing, a piece of glass, a transparent piece of glass that generates electricity. And what's so exciting about this, Ray and Jay, is independent parties have said to us that if you were to clad a tall tower, like for example, a Midtown 50-story tower in Manhattan, 150 feet by 150 feet, 50 stories high, and if you were to clad that tower based on independent calculations and modeling, the windows, our electricity generating windows, would generate enough electricity to offset that building's electricity needs by up to 50%.
Wow.
Now, imagine the enormity. In the United States, landlords like me, we spend about $150 billion a year on electricity, most of it made by fossil fuels, burning fossil fuels. Imagine the potential of cutting that number in half. Imagine 20%. Imagine just 10%,
Right.
$15 billion a year.
Right.
Let me tell you something. That's enormous. And that's what's that's what's motivated me all these years. Again, when you're a good person, when you do good things, invariably good things happen. And recently, our office, we invested another 20 odd million. So we put our money where our mouth is, and I'm so excited. The other company, Renovacare, which is it's a godsend in my opinion. That company has a preclinical experimental device called a skin gun. Essentially, what it does, it takes a thumbnail-sized skin sample of your own, it goes into that device. 90 minutes later, your own skin stem cells are being sprayed back on you. And JJ, you've read Tony Robbins' book. He just rips apart Wall Street. Wall Street's crooked. You can't make money over any 10-year period. Most guys are only 4% of professional investors make money. And over the next 10-year period, that 4% is not the same part of the next 4%. He just rips through the so-called professional money managers. And near the end of his book, he talks about world-changing technologies. And the first one, Ray, that he talks about is Renovacare. In Tony Robbins' book, believe it or not.
That's big. Wow. That's big.
Interesting. Yeah.
So 70 people have been experimentally treated. There are peer-reviewed, published studies talking about the exciting outcomes. Some people have come into the office, the hospital, and then in a matter of days have left, avoiding skin graft surgeries and painful recovery and medications and rehab and so on. Wow. It's exciting. I want to do things that are meaningful to society. And in that company, late last year, we put in $15.5 million on top of the 5 or 6 we had already before that. So again, we're in this in a meaningful way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, that's very exciting. I can just feel and hear the passion in your voice about it. And just what you got going on with those. It's incredible.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you respectfully. Tell you one more thing. I was looking for a parking spot recently. And where I park, I wanted to get a second one. And the lovely lady said, there's no parking spots available. In fact, there's 30 people ahead of you, or 20 people, I can't remember. And of course, as the gorilla knows, I don't give up. Are you sure? So she puts me to the manager, and I, again, same thing. I said, look, I got to take a lunch. I'll call you back after lunch. And I said, look, I'm a good guy. You blah, blah. She calls me after lunch and she says, Harmel, okay, 2 things. I said, what? You got your parking spot. I said, thank you. I said, what's the second thing? She said, I Googled you. And she says, what's this skin gun thing all about? And I said, well, why do you ask? Skin gun is, of course, the name of the technology with Renovacare, which is also public. Mm-hmm. And I said, why do you ask? She says, when I was 3 years old, our family was in an accident. I lost both of my parents, and I was burned really badly. And I had to get skin grafts. And guys, I don't know if you know this, but when you're a child, getting a skin graft, not only is it very painful because they take a chunk of your skin from a good part of your body, they stretch it out to put it on the burnt part. And as a child, as you're growing, that skin does not grow with you. So as you get a little older, they have to rip that skin off and then take other skin.
Wow.
To do it again. So she says, Harmel, I know the pain and suffering of skin graft surgery, which is the gold standard. She says, good for you that you're doing this. Good for you, because people like me could benefit from that. And she said, I wish you the best. So that's why we do it. For little girls who get burned and they don't have an alternative like ours, and when it gets approved, I'm hoping, fingers crossed.
Beautiful stuff. Yeah, Harmel, you said there's something you said in that. You said you make most of your decisions instinctually. Did I hear you correctly?
That's 100% correct.
So how? Because you seem like a very calculated individual, good strategist. I mean, is that something you try and balance, or just expand a little bit more on that? Because I found that interesting.
Well, you definitely have to. Joe and I talked about this. There's a big difference between speculating and gambling, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I don't gamble. When I go to Vegas, I go to watch the shows.
Yeah.
I speculate, and of course, you've got to do your homework. You got to know what you don't know, and you've got to read, study, and then read, study, and let some time go by and do it again. However, there comes a time when you just have to get off of first base. You'll never get to second base if you've got your foot stuck on first because you can't make a decision.
That's true.
So I'll give you a story. A prime example. I bought this building in Gastown. The vendor had just bought it, and they had it on their books for $15 million. And this is in 06. And the sales team that took me there, they had me actually sit across the street from the building, and there was a fashion school in there. So we were looking at all these beautiful people coming out of the building. I'm looking around and I think, gosh, that's really nice. And I said, hey, let's make them a fair offer. Let's make them a good offer. And we paid 20 for it. That was a $5 million lift in 7 months or so that they had it. And I just felt, I didn't look at what they, I don't care what they paid. It's none of my business. I don't look over somebody else's fence.
Mm-hmm.
And it just felt right. That was one example of how instinctually I jumped at an opportunity, and knock on wood and salt over the right shoulder, it worked out for us because it was worth substantially more a few years later. So yeah, you have to do your homework, of course, but then sometimes you just got to say, you know what, damn, that's a good opportunity, and jump at it.
Right. Right. Yeah, because I asked that question because that's something I even battle with myself with, is what, like, almost questioning my intuition and then having a tendency to overanalyze. If that makes sense to you.
Yes, it does make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, it's neat to hear. So, Harmel, you've reached a great level of success, business, financially, and you're still working, grinding. What's your motivation now? Because most people would be like, oh, I would be in the Bahamas, chilling, smoking cigars.
Right now with the rain outside, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
Listen, I think if you get a chance to get a copy of my book, Double-Digit Returns, I wrote that book to share what I've done, what I've accomplished, what I haven't done, what I've failed at, everything. It's a complete, it's my formula essentially. And in chapter 8, I talk about actually my formula. And the very first thing is the letter S in success. The S stands for sense of direction. You have to have a goal. When you stop having goals, Ray, when you don't have a purpose, man, it's like the big ship that's parked in the port. It doesn't have anywhere to go. So what starts happening? It starts rusting. The motor goes, this and that. That beautiful ship becomes nothing but a bucket of rust. So I don't want to be parked in my port with nowhere to go. I want to be charged up, and I want to reach for something. It's amazing. People, for example, when they're writing a book, JJ, I can't wait for yours. I know you're in the midst of one. I can't wait for it. Make sure I'm on the top of your list.
Definitely. Well, you're in it.
Oftentimes, when people are writing a book, they come up with an idea for their second book, and the third book. So you have to have somewhere to go. You have to be striving, reaching. Otherwise, a tree is either growing or it's decaying. I want to be the tree that's always growing.
Right. Does
that answer your question, right?
Yeah, no, it does. It does for sure. I mean, and since you mentioned your 2 books, which you self-published, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why don't you speak about those?
Oh, well, the first one I'm completely embarrassed about. The first one is, I'm as you know, a transparent person. It had the first one had a marketing agenda. It was written to highlight some real estate investment funds that we were contemplating at the time. And I don't like hidden agendas. So when I sat down late last year, I said, you know what, I'm gonna, and that book was co-written by a friend of mine, a really good friend, Bob Bly, who is an amazing writer. And you have to forgive my telephone in the background. I apologize. So when I sat down to update it, to take out those marketing messages, I said, this is crazy. So I decided to throw it out the window, and I started on a brand new one. And it talks about how I began in the mailroom. It talks about the main reason why people should invest in real estate. Chapter 2 is boom. It's about population. Joe, when I was born, there was 3 billion people in this world. Today, there's 7 odd billion. People are there. There's more and more people born every single day. In fact, in Canada, I think there's this country grows by 1 person every 75 seconds.
Wow.
The U.S. is one every 17, 18 seconds. China is one every 2 seconds. So countries are growing by the second, by the minute. Germany is at 1 person every 3 minutes. These people have to live somewhere, work somewhere, play somewhere. So that's the main reason why you need to get into real estate, because the chart is in your favor.
Yeah.
And everybody, and this is something you guys would love as professional investors. I talk about, everybody says it's all about location, location, location. I disagree. Of course, location is important, naturally. But there's something more important than location. You want to know what it is?
Yeah. What's that?
Timing. You could have bought the best house in the best street in the best city in 2007.
Yeah.
2008, 2009, that house is 50% lower. And in the U.S., 2/3 of all homes have yet to reach their pre-peak values.
Wow.
So timing is much more important than location. Hey, how many people bought Microsoft at the beginning of this year? It's up 40%. Right?
Yeah.
Timing. And how many people bought Uber? Anyways, I could go on and on. So I rewrote it, Ray, to answer your question, to truly share what matters. And I'm tired of people getting, listen, I was a stockbroker. You never asked me why I left the brokerage business.
Good question.
Yeah.
I left because the hypocrisy got to me. Think about this. Here I am, a kid, 20, 21 years old, being hired to give professional investment advice. I'm living at home, taking the bus to work. Tell me where that makes sense.
That's true.
Yeah.
Right? Warren Buffett says Wall Street is the only place where someone coming in on a bus, on a subway, gives advice to people in a Rolls Royce.
That's true.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's just why people, investors. Listen. This is I'm hoping with my book, people can level the playing field a little bit. And look, with your eyes closed, you can get 8, 9, 10% right now. And so I did it to share. And Ray, I'm not the guy that can't swim giving swimming advice, or the guy that's a bit obese giving diet advice. I'm a guy that's done it from the ground floor. So I think I have the right to give this kind of, especially since we've been generating 40+% a year on our equity, going on a decade and a half.
Wow. Incredible. Yeah, no, I mean, I think just people not knowing anything about you. I mean, it's transparent just listening to you talk. You can feel it. And what I want to ask you now, Harmel, because you're married, 2 kids, you have a family. What are your thoughts on a work-life balance?
Oh, damn, that's a tough one.
because me and JJ, we talk about this all the time, and me and him don't know how to do it. It's like how.
Well, I will I will tell you that the mind works best when it's rested. you have to have time off because you cannot be working all the time. And when you are working all the time, you have to have a reason why you're working. If it's just for the money, you're going to be a very miserable person.
It's true.
Money's important. It puts your kids through school. It allows us to enjoy all the niceties of modern life and all that. But you know what? You have to put it in perspective. It's not everything. I think you have to force yourself, just like JJ when he was looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He found the time to go to the gym, and I think we have to find the time to say, you know what? From this time to that time, the phone's off, the internet it's off, my Outlook's off. You just got to rest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, how has a failure, Harmel, or an apparent failure set you up for later success in life?
Well, first of all, I think everything happens for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Big believer of karma. I think there's another level of consciousness out there. I really do. And things are meant to be. My failures, as I look back and analyze some of my failures, I think there's someone above that has decided what our life is. Things do not happen by chance. They don't happen by accident.
Mm-hmm.
Even this conversation today, this is meant to be. And when you fail, it's meant to be because there are lessons in it. There are lessons that you can take and learn from and grow with in the future. So failure is an inevitable part of living and life and growth. If you don't fail, listen, you learn your best lessons through failure.
Very true.
Sure.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Very true.
I get stronger when I fail.
Yep.
The best education here is better than going to university.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what we were saying before, Jay. Right? The best school is the school of hard knocks, right? The best one.
Exactly.
Yep. Yeah. Harmel, top 3 book recommendations or had the most impact on your life?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm a big fan of Earl Nightingale. So anything from Earl Nightingale. There's lots of guys out there in the marketplace that are self-development coaches and this and that, and if you study what they're teaching, it all boils back down to what has been taught many years and centuries before us. You become what you think about all day long, and this is a big proponent of big teachings of Earl Nightingale. So Earl Nightingale is top 3 for sure. So The Strangest Secret, I can't now, lost for titles, and I read a lot, and I came across a book just recently. It's incredible. It's by Joe Dispenza. And Joe Dispenza is an amazing individual. One of these days, I hope to shake his hand. And he talks about how you can literally change your life by changing your thoughts and how you think and how you and how your feelings are. So that's another book that I just literally just recently picked up.
Do you remember the title? You remember the title of it?
You know what? Off the top of my head, I don't, but I will get it to JJ.
Sounds good.
You Are the Placebo or something like that. Joe Dispenza, Dispenza.
Okay.
And again, it's what Earl Nightingale's been telling you. You become what you think about. And he says, at this moment right now, you are the living embodiment of the sum total of all your thoughts at this point. And next week, you'll be the living embodiment at that point of your thoughts. So what he says is basically your thoughts control your life. So if your thoughts are haphazard, chaotic, helter-skelter, that's what your life will be. If your thoughts are positive, energized, compelling, and positive, that's what your life will be. Your thoughts predict your future, and that's I think that's the biggest lesson I've ever learned, and think about that every single day, and I try to keep my thoughts as positive as I can, even when things are not going so well.
For sure, I believe that. So JJ shared with me a funny story when you guys were in Turks and Caicos involving some scooters. You remember this?
Yes, I like, and JJ likes. If you've watched read about these famous people like Zuckerberg and Mr. Gates, they take time to go away, to think, to reflect, to recharge. This is that part about resting.
Right.
And I like to do that. And I like to go to a beach resort where there's nobody around, where nobody can get a hold of you, and just sit and reflect and think. And one year I was blessed to have the privilege and the pleasure of hanging out with JJ here. And we decided to rent some scooters. And, JJ's a big boy.
Yeah.
And, the Turks and Caicos doesn't have much of a hill because it's pretty flat. But the one hill that we did find was enough to literally extract the life out of that scooter. And I knew there was something wrong when JJ sat on the scooter and the tire went flat at the bottom. It was no longer round. And God, I don't know how that scooter got up that hill.
Oh, jeez.
And the hill was maybe a 3-inch, 3% grade. That was a fun time. I'll never forget it. It was a beautiful time because I got a chance to spend, we hung out, we didn't do much. We drank, we ate, we ran around. It was probably one of the best times I ever spent. And I was so recharged mentally and physically when I got back home. It was wonderful.
It was.
Yeah.
So last question I got for you, Harmel, is when is your DJ career going to take off?
JJ, let me tell you something. I've been a fan of mixing music since I was in high school. And then one day, it was a nightclub in one of my buildings, and I threw a party for my daughter. And the DJ, famous DJ, local DJ, says, "Hey," because every time we did a mix, I would be interested. Oh, wow, that's so nice. So why are you listening so intently? I said, "Well, this is my love. I don't play golf. I don't do whatever. I just love the mix." So he says, "Oh, yeah, I'll set you up." So he set me up with my Technique 1200s, my Serato 57 SL. So for all the DJs, they know what I'm talking about, and gave me 7,000 of his songs. So that got me set up quasi-professionally. And then I did something crazy. I put a nightclub in my house. Had engineers come in, and so my problem is, I don't have the time. And I even went down to LA recently to learn how to scratch with DJ Happa.
Really?
Yeah, and a couple other, and DJ Revolution. These guys are just insane. My problem is time.
Yeah.
And for those DJ fanatics, I've now upgraded my mixer to the brand new Serato 62, the digital turntable. So I'm really into this. I know it's funny, but it's my only joy.
It's funny. Harmel has two brothers, and they're older, and they both have nicknames too. One's Beaver, and the other one is Sammy Davis Jr. And I give them both shout outs. But they told me that he built a nightclub in his house, and I didn't believe them at first.
That's funny.
Yeah, my neighbors love me.
Yeah, neighbors love you.
That's funny. Yeah, shout out to Beaver and Sammy Davis. That's funny. Oh man, Harmel, man, it was a pleasure having you on. The amount of wisdom you shared was great. I mean, I really enjoyed this. JJ, any parting thoughts?
Oh no, it was a pleasure, and it's always nice to go back to the people who mentored you and taught you business, and And also Harmel and his family were there when I stumbled and fell. And, there was a time I didn't have a car after 9/11, and his older brother, Sammy Davis, Jeffrey, he used to drive me to work every morning, and I'll never forget that.
Mm-hmm.
So, much love. I was always treated as sort of like an adopted younger brother, and I always appreciate that.
That's great. Awesome. Harmel, anything for our listeners before we sign off?
Well, JJ, Joe Fortes is still open. So, when's the next lunch?
Yeah, we'll have to find somebody to nail. I'm sure you've got a lawyer or somebody who's been getting some good fees off of you.
Absolutely. I got a few of those. I got a half a dozen. And this we'll have Ray.
Oh yeah, we haven't initiated Ray into the buying lunch.
Oh God. Well, I mean, I'm like 5,000 miles away, so I don't know.
That's okay. That's okay. You can, we'll fly you up.
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh God. Well, Harmel, really appreciate it once again. And so,
my pleasure.
So for the gorilla, for the moose, I'm the gator. Stay safe out there.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.